Hello, Isaac in India. Today we will be going through the services provided by parent LCs to expansion entities. So, according to the Isaac India Compendium, there are six parent LC services offered to expansion entities by parent local committees or parent LCs. These parent LC services are as follows. Number one, expansions management and support. Number two, financial and legal management. Number three, organization structure subsystem. Number four, training and coaching model. Number five, services after the legislation of a business unit into an official expansion. And number six, services after the legislation of an official expansion into a local committee. Coming to the first parent LC service, which is expansions management and support. So under this, we have four sub-services, which are as follows: strategic planning, tracking and reporting, operational and functional support, involvement in parent LC forums, and representation at national conferences. Coming to strategic planning, tracking, and reporting, it is the mandate to submit quarterly report on progress of the plans of the official expansions and business units. And these reports or these quarterly reports are to be submitted to the member committee vice president for expansions as well as the membership subcommittee. These quarterly reports include a wide range of topics, ranging from the target versus achieved of the expansion entity, then the touch points between the parent LC and the expansion entities, and in terms of support provided in the form of conducting events or doing recruitments, the kind of training provided, the kind of tracking being done, the kind of virtual touchpoints between the parent LC and the expansion entities, and anything unique that is being done for the expansion entities by the parent LC. Then a parent LC representative needs to be present to facilitate the planning process for official expansions and business units twice in a year. So this is essentially the parent LC representative, or ideally the local committee vice president for expansions or director expansions, being present in the official expansions and the business units twice in a year to facilitate the planning process. The planning process here essentially means the whole target versus achieved, or understanding that, and planning targets for the summer peak, for the winter peak, things like those. Then the parent LC needs to review and provide feedback on official expansions and business units plans. So the local committee vice president for expansions or the expansions responsible in the local committee, along with the leadership bodies of the official expansions and the business units, come up with plans in terms of operations, in terms of events for the expansion entities, and the parent LC needs to review them. Then virtual management to be tracked and implemented by the parent LC. Virtual management in terms of operations, in terms of events being done, in terms of touch points, in terms of membership growth, in terms of membership development, in terms of the entities development for expansion entities, needs to be tracked, and virtual management needs to be implemented by the parent LC. The second subservice under expansions management and support is operational and functional support, under which a mandatory visit by the parent LC executive body member or the LCVP for expansions, or the expansions responsible in the local committee, needs to be done every quarter for operational and functional training of the leadership body of official expansions and business units. Involvement in parent LC forums. So the parent LC needs to invite the heads of official expansions and the leadership bodies of the official expansions as well as the business units to annual general meetings, local committee president elections or annual election meeting, and local conferences. Then the expansion entity president or the expansion entity responsible needs to be present at the time of annual general meeting, which is conducted by the parent LC. Now, representation at national conferences. So the parent LC needs to ensure that at least one representative from official expansions as well as business units is present at every national compendium conference. Moving on to the next service, which is financial and legal management. So, under the parent LC service of financial and legal management for expansion entities, the first subservice is budgeting, and the second one is financial support. Under budgeting, the parent LC should budget for all expansion entities, and which needs to be allocated as part of the parent LC's budget, which is presented initially at annual general meeting and re-ratified again later on. Now, the next point is an expansion entity contract between parent LC and the expansion entity needs to be drafted with the consent of the LCP, the LCVP Finance, and the EEP or the expansion entity president, which needs to be signed and submitted by the parent LC along with AGM check. Also, expansion entity contract needs to be reviewed and renewed every single year for official expansions as well as business units until and unless that particular expansion entity comes under the parent LC, comes under that particular parent LC. The next subservice is financial support. So once an official expansion is upgraded to a local committee, then the parent LC responsible for that particular expansion entity is liable to pay the sum of rupees 25,000 in addition to a 3 months of TM and L&D budget along with an admin budget, and this needs to be paid to the newly upgraded local committee within the 6 months of their upgradation, within the first 6 months of their upgradation. Then the parent LC is liable to bear the expenses of expansion entities. And the following are the expenses. Number one is admin, which includes expansion visits, office rent, internet, and induction. Induction here essentially means LDS or LTS that we do for new recruits. Then TM and LND. This includes rewards and recognitions campaigns, conference subsidies for entity responsibles and entity members, and expansion days. Then membership reimbursement, which needs to be followed on the same lines as how it is followed for members in the parent LC. Events and product expenses. Expenses essentially mean the recon paid for the exchanges that the parent LC does in the official expansions or the business units. Moving on, the next parent LC service is organization structure subsystem. So under organization structure subsystem, there is one subservice which is expansion entity leadership body selection, which needs to be done by the parent local committee. So the parent local committee is supposed to create an application questionnaire for expansion entity president application. And this is to be done once a business unit is upgraded to an official expansion. Then the representative from the parent LC executive body needs to be present for leadership body selection process of an official expansion. So the parent LC executive body needs to be present for the executive body selection for an official expansion, which is the expansion entity vice presidents or even directors. Moving on, training and coaching model. So under training and coaching model, which is a parent LC service, the subservice is expansion entity leadership body coaching and training. So the parent LC executive body needs to ensure that there is a joint-to-joint transition with official expansion leadership body or the official expansion executive body within 30 days of selection of the same. Then the parent LC's LCP needs to have a quarterly one-to-one with the expansion entity presidents as well as the business unit coordinators. The next parent LC service is the services provided to official expansions after their legislation from a business unit, or the services provided after the legislation of a business unit into official expansion. So this includes expansion entity president training by local committee president twice a year, and leadership body training or the executive body of an official expansions, their training to be done by the LC expansions responsible, which can ideally be the LCVP for expansions or a director for expansions. EEP selection or the expansion entity president selection. So during the existence of the first year as an OE or an official expansion level 1, the parent LC shall conduct selection for the appointment of an EEP. Then, in the next year or during the second year of an entity's existence as an official expansion, the parent local committee shall conduct election for the appointment of an expansion entity president. Moving on to the last parent LC service provided to expansion entities, which is services after the legislation of official expansion into local committee. So this includes the parent LC executive body to give joint-to-joint transitions to the selected executive body of the local committee within 30 days of the official expansions legislation into a local committee. Next is the parent LC needs to initiate opening of bank account for the new LC within 15 days of being ratified, which is the executive body of the newly initiated local committee being ratified. Within 15 days of that, the parent LC needs to initiate opening of bank account for the same. Then reallocation of official expansion or business unit. So in case if any official expansion or business unit is being reallocated or is up for bid, then all existing accounts and financial liabilities need to be cleared by the current parent local committee before handing it over to the new parent local committee. And one very important note is that if any of the above clauses are violated, a mandate fine will be applicable according to the financial regulation of the compendium.